Who are the most powerful dragons in fantasy media? How do they scale in regards to power? How does that power scale in relationship to one another? Are these dragons capable of destroying armies? Are they capable of destroying nations? Are some even more powerful than that? Today, we rank these dragons and discuss just how powerful and terrifying they genuinely are. Hello everyone, this is SaberRex, and in this video we will be covering the characters, creatures, and plots of books and films such as the Primitive War franchise, the Inheritance Cycle, the Dragon Prince, Fairy Tale, and so much more. So, without further ado, welcome one and all. Today, for this analysis special, we look into some of the most powerful dragons thus far depicted in movies, television, video games, and books. So sit back, grab your favorite snacks, and prepare for a good long look at some of the most powerful dragons that have ever come to page and screen so far. When it comes to mythical creatures, nothing holds a candle to dragons. In my opinion, and indeed for much of the world, they are the ultimate mythical creature. They can be gods or demons, animals or sentient beings, good or evil. As a result, it's little wonder why they are so beloved and so ingrained in human culture. Beyond that, dragons represent nature's fury and raw power, and a mirror to our own behavior. Dragons can look and act however people want them to act. Whatever rules an artist or an author creates for them, the dragons can follow them, regardless of whether they are realistic or not. For this reason, I consider them to be humanity's ultimate creation from an imagination standpoint. In some ways, the world needs dragons, both for heroes to overcome or as allies for them to fight beside. And they are so much more than this. As such, after much thought on the matter, I wanted to make a video discussing and ranking some of the strongest dragons to ever appear on the big screen, on television, and in books. For this video, we shall be ranking them by tier. Unlike what I did with the Dragon Slayer Codex in one of my previous videos, we will not rank from E tier to S tier, but in regards to raw power. These power tiers will be ranked as follows: Village Levelers, City Destroyers, Kingdom Crushers, Nation Demolishers, Continental Conquerors, and Planetary Threats. Good and evil dragons alike will be sorted into these categories. As of yet, none of the dragons in this video would qualify for anything above this, not even universal menaces, and certain dragons, such as Xylarion, a dragon deity of unrivaled evil in the Dungeons & Dragons universe, have not appeared in major book, TV, or film adaptations. As such, there will be no ranking for them. So dragons like Her, Tiamat, Bahamut, and Super Shenron from the Dragon Ball franchise, who only grants wishes and can only be summoned for short amounts of time to grant said wishes, are going to be left out of this video. Village Levelers. For our first tier, let's talk about the village leveling dragons. These are dragons that are capable of destroying villages and towns. They are immensely powerful, but are still mortal beings with very real limits. They only have a certain amount of stamina, and for all their power, they are still easily killed. They are also powerful enough to stand up to any dragon slayers and still come out on top. Number 1. Scatha. Let's start with Scatha from J.R.R. Tolkien's World of Middle-earth. Scatha was one of the great cold drakes, that is to say, dragons who could not breathe fire. We don't know exactly how many villages or kingdoms he might have attacked, but he did steal such an amount of treasure from the dwarves he warred with that he slept on a vast hoard of gold, jewels, and other valuable treasures. This suggests that while he might not have destroyed kingdoms, he at least destroyed or damaged many settlements. He was eventually slain by Fram, son of Frumgar, an early warrior of the people who would later become known as the Men of Rohan. Fram was eventually killed in a quarrel with the dwarves Scatha had stolen from, but that is a story for another time altogether. Suffice to say, Scatha was powerful, but certainly not strong enough to overcome a dragon slayer of significant quality, or to destroy entire kingdoms outright. Number 2. Fafnir. Next on our list of village levelers, we have Fafnir. Fafnir was a dragon of Germanic mythology. He has been portrayed several times in various media, including the sci-fi film Dark Kingdom, The Dragon King, the 2018 video game God of War, and the Netflix series Twilight of the Gods. In the original myth, Fafnir was a dwarf and the brother of Regin and Odr. His own greed eventually turned him into a dragon after killing his father, and he is eventually killed by Siegfried, a hero of the Volsung saga, in which the myth is portrayed. In most of these depictions of the myth, he is shown to have enough power to level an entire village, or villages, depending on which version of the tale you read. Likewise, after being slain by Siegfried, bathing in his blood granted Siegfried multiple abilities, including having skin as hard as iron, save for an area that was covered up by a leaf as he was bathing in the dragon's blood. And from eating Fafnir's heart, Siegfried gained the ability to speak to birds and animals. This allowed Siegfried to anticipate betrayal from Regan, who used Siegfried to try and gain access to his brother's hoard. Nonetheless, Fafnir was still a mortal creature who was killed through a cunning stab to his unprotected belly from below. Fafnir was an inspiration for many of the dragons that J.R.R. Tolkien also later created, including Glaurung, Scatha, and Smaug, with some aspects of encounters with them mirroring the fight between Siegfried and Fafnir in the Volsung saga. Number 3. Vermithrax Pejorative. Our third entry into the village leveler tier is Vermithrax Pejorative herself. Appearing in the 1981 Disney-Paramount joint film Dragon Slayer, Vermithrax is an ancient female dragon about 400 years old. She is smart enough to have made a bargain with the humans of the kingdom of Urland, with them sacrificing virgin women to her twice a year in exchange for peace. She is also powerful enough that even with the help of magic, the young wizard Galen Brandwarden failed to kill her with both a rock slide and an enchanted lance, though he did kill her offspring. She would likewise cause incredible damage to local villages throughout the kingdom whenever her wrath was unleashed. In the end, it took the power of Galen's mentor, Ulrich of Kraganmore, sacrificing himself through the destruction of his mystical amulet by Galen to kill the dragon. This shows she was very powerful indeed. That Vermithrax Pejorative was this old and still powerful enough to destroy the entire villages of Urland while being particularly ancient and in constant pain as a result of her age only shows just how powerful she really was. It should also be noted that she inspired the dragons of Game of Thrones, many of whom we shall also rank on this list. Number 4. Beowulf's Dragon. Next on our list of village levelers is the dragon that Beowulf fought and killed. In the original poem, the dragon was about 25 allens, or roughly 50 feet long. It was also said to be very powerful and ravaged many villages in its rage over a cup being stolen from its hoard by a thief. Beowulf killed this dragon in an all-out battle, aided only by his nephew Wiglaf. Out of all the warriors who have slain dragons in ancient mythology, Beowulf still remains as the only person to take on a dragon directly and win, even though it cost him his life. For in the original tale, the dragon still manages to sink its fangs into his throat, even as he kills it with help from Wiglaf. In the 2007 film for Beowulf, this dragon is also given the twist of being Beowulf's son, spawned from an affair with Grendel's mother when she disguised herself as a human. And it is this version of the dragon that we are ranking as a village leveler. With just a few blasts of fire, this dragon manages to destroy the village just outside of Heorot, the castle built over and around Hrothgar's mead hall of the same name. The battle that follows between father and son is arguably one of the most intense fights between a man and dragon ever put to screen and stage at that time, because Beowulf manages to latch onto the dragon's back and ride it, first grabbing on with his axe, then his dagger, and finally the chained anchor from a sunken ship, even as the dragon tries to throw him off and kill the people he cares about. Beowulf even willingly cuts off his own arm in order to reach the single vulnerable spot in the dragon's throat, where its heart lies, literally swinging from his chainmail shirt and severed arm, which are chained to the dragon, in order to cut out its heart and kill it. Beowulf spends his final moments watching his son transform back into his humanoid self before the dragon washes away into the sea, and he dies with Wiglaf at his side. This dragon could potentially be ranked higher, but as we never saw this dragon destroy a castle completely, he remains in the village leveler category. Number 5. Maleficent. Technically a fairy, Maleficent is able to turn into a dragon at will. In the original 1959 film Sleeping Beauty, she turns into a massive black dragon that breathes green fire. Desperate to prevent Prince Philip from breaking her spell over Princess Aurora, Maleficent faces off directly against him when he overcomes her deadly traps. In this form, she is terrible to behold and very large. Her power is sufficient enough that she is able to blast holes in stone bridges using her flames, and even protected by a shield, her power is sufficient enough to knock Prince Philip off his feet or off his horse Samson. It is only with the help of the 3 good fairies and the Sword of Truth that they gave him that Philip is able to finally overcome her, throwing the sword directly into her heart as she lunges at him and crashes over the cliff they were fighting on. When she is later resurrected by her pet raven Diablo using her staff during a solar eclipse in the short story Maleficent's Revenge, she is once again able to fight Prince Philip as a dragon after putting Aurora into an enchanted sleep. Only this time during their fight she inadvertently bites her own tail with her venomous fangs. As a result, she ends up killing herself, this time for good, due to her being vulnerable to her own venom. Due to her power, she could easily be considered higher than a village leveler, but because she never actually destroyed Aurora's kingdom, she is ranked as being lower. Nonetheless, she's nothing to be scoffed at. Number 6. Syrax. The first dragon of Westeros we will be ranking in this tier. Syrax technically counts as a village leveler. She was never brought into any significant battles in Westeros, but she did participate in the storming of the Dragon Pit, during which she was killed by an angry mob. Still, her power was enough to have killed hundreds of people in that battle. She was large and powerful, but also essentially fat and heavily spoiled as a result of being the dragon of Rhaenyra Targaryen. Despite this, she was still a dragon and a terrifying sight to behold on the battlefield. She died brutally but valiantly, as did most of her species involved with the Dance of the Dragons. Number 7. Saphira. Arguably one of the smartest dragons in the Village Leveler tier, Saphira Bjartskular from the Inheritance Cycle, that is to say Aragon, Eldest, Brisingar, and Inheritance itself, only gets this ranking because she is young. As of the book Murtagh, she's perhaps around 2 or maybe 3 years old. She's bonded to Aragon Bromson, the first dragon rider born free of King Galbatorix's influence in over 100 years, since the Dark King and former dragon rider originally wiped out the dragon rider order. Despite this, she is capable of doing incredible feats of magic when she has the inspiration to do so, as she cannot otherwise use magic voluntarily. However, her power not only comes from her fiery breath, for she can breathe fire for up to half an hour, but also from her intellect. She is very smart and logical, and capable of incredible power both from a physical and mental standpoint, because she is also telepathic, as with all dragons from the land of Allegasia. As with all Allegasian dragons, she will never stop growing throughout her life, and she is biologically immortal, and while her body may die, she can choose to live on through her Eldunari, the gem-like organ that houses her soul. If she does this, she will live forever, even when her physical body finally comes to an end. Number 8. Thorn. Another dragon of Village Leveler tier is Thorn, also from the Inheritance Cycle. Bonded to Aragon's half-brother, Murtagh, Thorn is about as powerful as Saphira, though he is a bit younger and a bit larger as a result of having his growth accelerated against his will by King Galbatorix. Thorn has been shown to create vast swaths of destruction in battle. A perfect example of this is when he helps his rider destroy the dark village of Nalgorgoth in the book Murtagh. Thorn is also shown to be claustrophobic, causing him to fly into a destructive rage out of fear of enclosed spaces, due to his being abused by Galbatorix during his youth. He eventually overcomes this, but the destruction he wreaks cannot be understated in these moments when he loses all rational thinking ability. The only reason he likewise does not rank higher than this is because, like Saphira, with whom he has both fought against and beside, he is young and still growing. Like her, he has an effectively immortal lifespan, but can be injured or killed in battle. He also possesses the same abilities, including fire breath and the ability to speak and attack telepathically. Likewise, he is logical and capable of great wisdom and excellent battle tactics. Thorn also can use magic whenever the inspiration hits him. As he grows larger, he will become even stronger. Such is the way of Allegasian dragons. Number 9. Brimscythe. Our next dragon in the Village Leveler category is Brimscythe from the legend of Vox Machina. This dragon, referring to himself as the Iron Storm, comes from the fictional world of Exandria, and is a dragon from the Dungeons and Dragons mythos. Being a blue dragon, his breath weapon is lightning. Out of all the dragons in the Village Leveler tier, he is arguably the smartest and perhaps the most powerful. This is a dragon that, without effort, not only destroyed an entire army and was largely immune to their siege weapons, but also villages and multiple groups of mercenaries that had been sent to kill it. Of course, Brimscythe had disguised himself as General Krieg, the commander of the armies of the Kingdom of Taldore, in order to do this. This makes him even far more menacing, because he infiltrated the inner circle of the kingdom's sovereign in order to enact his plans after killing the man whom he would imitate. Why did he do this? Because he was the youngest member of the organization known as the Chroma Conclave, a group of 5 chromatic dragons, the most evil dragons within the Dungeons and Dragons universe, that wanted to create an empire of their own. Brimscythe was particularly cunning and exceedingly cruel and ambitious. He succeeded in weakening Tal'Dorei's defenses, but ultimately was killed by Vox Machina, who used unorthodox tactics to kill the young adult blue dragon. Because he was a young adult, he was the weakest member of the Chroma Conclave. As such, he is only ranked as a village leveler for that reason alone. Tier 2. City Destroyers. Our next tier of dragon power are the City Destroyers. These are dragons that can either heavily damage or destroy cities with little effort. They represent true and devastating power beyond what can be inflicted by dragons of the Village Leveler tier. Number 10. Sea Smoke. Out of all the dragons in the City Destroyer tier, I would consider Sea Smoke from A Song of Ice and Fire to be the weakest. This dragon from Westeros was ridden first by Laenor Velaryon and then by his half-brother, Adam of Hull. Nonetheless, Sea Smoke is still exceedingly powerful, as he was able to fight against a much larger dragon, that is to say, Vermithor, during the Second Battle of Tumbleton. In House of the Dragon, he also participates in the fight against the Triarchy pirates in the Stepstones, though he does not engage in this battle in the books. He also fought a second dragon in addition, Tessarion. In this battle, it was essentially a three-way duel between dragons of different sizes. All three died of their injuries. Nonetheless, Sea Smoke went out fighting and was able to inflict injuries that eventually helped kill the larger Vermithor. Number 11. Silverwing. Next up we have Silverwing. She would rank higher due to her size and firepower potentially, but Silverwing never participated in any major battles except the Battle of the Gullet and the First Battle of Tumbleton. She was a largely peaceful dragon, first ridden by Queen Alysanne Targaryen and then by Ulf the White, and she was generally very tolerant and even friendly toward people due to her bond with the Queen. Other than these two battles, she never has been shown engaging in bloody combat at all, and she does not fight other dragons or go on to participate in any other campaigns. After the death of her mate Vermithor, she becomes wild and eventually dies sometime after the Dance of the Dragons. It is never explained how or why she dies. Nonetheless, her size and strength qualify her as a city destroyer, but her attitude does not qualify her to go any higher. Number 12. Drogon. What list of powerful dragons would be complete without Drogon, the mount and son of the mother of dragons herself, Daenerys Targaryen? Out of all of her 3 dragons, Drogon is the largest and most powerful. He is perhaps the same size as Silverwing, and he is powerful enough that he single-handedly, at Daenerys' command, destroyed the city of King's Landing. He also destroyed the Red Keep, the castle at the heart of the city that Daenerys' ancestors built. His strength and durability were unmatched among her 3 dragons, with him literally diving through the castle walls and emerging unscathed as he blasted them with his destructive flames. He was also able to take a bolt to the shoulder from a scorpion and still keep attacking, despite how painful it was. Indeed, the wound only made him angry. Despite his bestial nature, he was also quite intelligent, perhaps enough to understand that his mother's quest for power and the trauma that led to her commanding him to burn King's Landing was what eventually led to her death. It cannot be stated for sure, but it does make one wonder. Nonetheless, he is still young at around 7 years old and has much growing to do. Eventually, he will reach a size that no creature alive will be able to challenge him.
Number 13. Rhaegal. The second of the 3 dragons belonging to Daenerys Targaryen, Rhaegal was smaller than his brother Drogon and of equal size to Viserion, his other sibling, but still a force to be reckoned with. He participated in the Battle of Slaver's Bay and showcased his terrifying power by helping to burn the attacking ships. He also participated in the battle against the White Walkers at Winterfell, fighting with his new rider, Jon Snow, against Viserion, who had been turned into an undead dragon by the Night King, and he even technically managed to defeat his brother's corpse, though it left him exhausted and wounded. Rhaegal, however, was a little less powerful than Drogon, and thus was fatally wounded by Euron Greyjoy, who used scorpions to shoot bolts through his chest and neck, killing him and causing him to crash into the sea. Due to his size and power, not to mention his achievements, Rhaegal ranks solidly in the City Destroyer tier. Number 14. Viserion. The youngest and smallest brother among Daenerys Targaryen's 3 dragons, Viserion can be classified as a city destroyer due to his size at the time of his death, not to mention his achievements both as a living and undead dragon. When he fought at Slaver's Bay, he helped his brothers to burn the attacking ships, and when he helped to fight the army of the dead while rescuing Jon Snow, he was killed and then resurrected as the Night King's mount. The Night King used him to burn down the wall, allowing the army of the dead to invade Westeros. Viserion later fought at Winterfell under the command of the Night King, where he faced off against his brother Rhaegal. Though he technically lost this fight due to having his face ripped in half, this did not matter because he was a reanimated corpse. As a result, he kept fighting until the Night King was destroyed, causing Viserion to die again as well.
Number 15. Umbrasyl. Arguably the most sadistic dragon in the City Destroyer tier, and one of the most sadistic dragons in media, period, Umbrasyl the Hope Devourer was a member of the Chroma Conclave, a black dragon, and one of the primary antagonists of the legend of Vox Machina. With acid as his breath weapon, Umbrasyl was capable of destroying buildings and other structures with terrifying ease, and this same acid melted anyone caught in it into a pile of bloody ooze. He and the other members of the Chroma Conclave worked together to topple an entire nation, and Umbrasyl himself destroyed the city of Westruun single-handedly, with the half-giants known as the Herd of Storms enforcing his rule over the ruins as they paid tribute to him. Umbrasyl's scales were nearly impenetrable to most forms of weaponry, and he was well versed in many forms of magic, making him even more terrifyingly powerful. He could heal himself, had extensive knowledge of potions and magical artifacts, including the divine weapons known as the Vestiges of Divergence, and he could turn invisible and manipulate his lair using magic. Almost anyone who faced him ended up dead. Vox Machina was only able to overcome him thanks to sheer luck and bravery combined with wielding the Vestiges of Divergence. Because he was capable of incredible planning, not to mention using manipulation and deception, he was arguably one of the most difficult foes for Vox Machina's members to fight. Number 16. Voragal. Another member of the Chroma Conclave appearing in the legend of Vox Machina, Voragal the Frigid Doom was a white dragon. His breath weapon was ice. Like Umbrasyl, he was powerful and had the ability to speak, think, and reason. He also had a significant level of control over magic and could see through illusions. He was brutally straightforward because of his nature as a white dragon. White dragons, as a rule, lived for the thrill of the hunt and for fighting strong opponents. Being one of the strongest white dragons ever depicted in movies and television, he was capable of wreaking vast destruction upon any city he encountered. Between him and the other members of the Chroma Conclave, the four of them working together toppled an entire nation to create their own empire. Voragol was instrumental in destroying the city of Iman and personally saw to it that most of the people who fled the city against the orders of his commander, Thordak, never got the chance to escape. That alone meant thousands of people dead. Voragol also was so powerful that he was able to take on an archfiend called Yank from Hell itself. He was able to kill the demon after a fierce battle, during which he was wounded but still managed to come out as the clear victor. Vox Machina used this to their advantage, as the dragon was made that much easier to take down. He was eventually killed in the series by Lady Kima of Vord working together with Vox Machina, but in the original campaign it was Vox Machina who dealt the killing blow, with his fellow Chroma Conclave member Raishan finishing him off. Number 17. Raishan. Physically the weakest member of the Chroma Conclave, Raishan the Diseased Deceiver was a green dragon and one of the founding members of the group. Though physically the weakest out of all the dragons in the legend of Vox Machina, she was arguably the smartest and most well-versed in magic. Her power was such that she could disguise herself without being detected, taking the forms of humans or any other being she chose to imitate. Her main reason for joining the Chroma Conclave was that her commander, Thordak, had promised her a cure to the deadly disease that was slowly killing her. She freed him in exchange for this cure, and helped to assemble the Conclave so they could create their own empire. However, Thordak began to forget his promise to her due to the powerful relic embedded in his chest, which altered his mind and made him more irrational and insane as time went on. As a result, Raishan betrayed him and sided with Vox Machina as long as was mutually beneficial. Once he was killed, Raishan took Thordak's corpse for her own purposes. In the original campaign on which Vox Machina is based, she used his knowledge to try and become a Draco-Lich, only to be stopped by Vox Machina when they used magic to remove her intelligence before killing her. In the TV series, she was successfully able to turn herself into a Draco-Lich using Thordak's body as a vessel so she could abandon her own diseased one. Vox Machina member Keyleth of the Ashari managed to outwit and kill her by transmitting the disease from her corpse into her undead vessel, finally destroying her once and for all. She was arguably the most dangerous member of the Chroma Conclave, and even in spite of her sickness, she was still a formidable dragon capable of killing hundreds of people thanks to her poisonous breath weapon, which consisted of chlorine gas mixed with the deadly disease that had been inflicted upon her. It is likely that when she attacked the city of Iman, that she killed hundreds, if not thousands, of people. She was even responsible for the death of Sovereign Uriel, thus making her one of the few characters amongst dragons to directly kill the leader of an entire nation. Number 18. Melis. In ranking the dragons that come from A Song of Ice and Fire in this video, Melis could easily be considered a city destroyer. She's certainly large enough and powerful enough to be one. Indeed, she's larger than Drogon, and he destroyed a city by himself. It's unclear whether or not she was more powerful than Drogon due to his younger age, but it's more than likely, even with his accelerated growth. In the Battle of Rook's Rest, She killed hundreds of soldiers and fought both Sunfire and Vagar in that same battle, with Sunfire being so gravely wounded in the fight that he was never able to fly normally again. In the television show, it is shown that she was able to hold her own and briefly even defeat Vagar by causing her to crash to the ground. However, Vagar was a much more experienced dragon when it came to fighting in battle. As a result, she was able to ambush Meles and crush her neck and her jaws, killing her. Nonetheless, it must be stated that had Vagar not been able to outsmart the smaller dragon, Meles would have won because she was faster. Even in the books, it has been said that Meles might have been a match for Vagar alone had the two of them fought solely one-on-one. Number 19. Vermithor. Another dragon from A Song of Ice and Fire, Vermithor was so strong and so large that he nearly rivaled Vagar in size. He was also the mate to Silverwing. He fought in the Battle of the Gullet and the first and second battles of Tumbleton. In all three battles he created untold amounts of devastation. And even before that he was bonded to Jaehaerys Targaryen, the longest reigning king of the Targaryen dynasty. One of the most prominent battles of that time that he participated in was the Battle of the 100 Candles, in which he and fellow dragons Vagar and Caraxes and their riders attacked a fleet of 100 Dornish ships and came away essentially unscathed without losing a single fighter. Vermithor ended up getting killed in a three-way battle with the smaller dragons Tessarion and Seasmoke, killing or mortally wounding both of them and only dying himself due to the grievous wounds they inflicted upon him. If that isn't power, I don't know what is. Given that these are the only real battles that he participated in that we know about, he is ranked firmly as a city destroyer. He could easily rank higher, but there are other dragons that take that spot more easily than he does. Number 20. Glader. Arguably the most intelligent out of all the dragons classified as a city destroyer, Glader was ancient and powerful, having lived for over 800 years. He was wise and knowledgeable and was the teacher to Saphira and her rider Aragon in the inheritance cycle. Such was his might that he was able to extinguish a fire with a single thunderclap from his wings. He was also able, in spite of having only 3 legs, to hold his own against the smaller Thorn, whom he had been forced to fight because Thorn and his rider Murtagh had been enslaved by King Galbatorix. Indeed, Glader and his rider Oramus would have eventually won against Thorn and Murtagh had Galbatorix not personally intervened. Glader died because Thorn was reluctantly forced to kill him, and thus Glader was confined to his Eldunari. Even after his body died, Glader was still immensely powerful, able to mentally lash out with such force that it brought an army to its knees. His stores of energy were also incredibly vast. Like all dragons from the inheritance cycle, Glader could not use magic at will, instead using it when the inspiration hit him, relying on his rider to cast the spells while he supplied the energy. However, Glader could, like all dragons within the inheritance cycle, use his mind to communicate and to attack just as he could attack with tooth and claw. Number 21. Caraxes. Arguably the fiercest dragon in A Song of Ice and Fire at the time of House of the Dragon and the corresponding events known as the Dance of the Dragons, Caraxes, also known as the Bloodworm, is arguably one of the most powerful dragons to rank here in the City Destroyer tier. He was roughly half the size of Vagar herself, the largest dragon at that time in Westeros. Caraxes was a veteran of combat, having been ridden by Aemon I Targaryen and then by his nephew, Daemon. He participated in many battles, including the Battle of the 100 Candles, the Battles of the Stepstones, and finally the Battle above the God's Eye, which was the battle in which he fought to the death against Vhagar. Even as she gutted him and ripped off his wing, Caraxes still managed to tear out her throat, killing the largest dragon of the time as they crashed into the lake below. Even as he was dying, Caraxes still won by surviving the longest, having crawled out of the lake before dying on the shore. Kingdom Crushers. The dragons of the Kingdom Crusher tier are dragons that are capable of either destroying kingdoms or subduing small countries. These are dragons that have the size, strength, and power, or some combination thereof, to bend small countries to their will and completely eliminate them if they so desire. Number 22. The Red Death. The Red Death from the How to Train Your Dragon franchise is arguably the first Kingdom Crusher we will talk about. This dragon is so massive and so powerful that it took teamwork, precision, and a smaller but even more powerful and stealthy dragon to take it down. At more than 400 feet long, the Red Death is one of the largest dragons on this list. Its fire breath alone was enough to set an entire fleet of Viking ships ablaze, and it was able to step on and destroy catapults like they were matchsticks. The dragon was also so tough that most of the other dragons that were brought up against it by Hiccup Haddock and his team were virtually useless against it. Only the combined might of Hiccup and his Night Fury, Toothless, were able to bring it down, which they did by burning holes in its wings and then firing a blast into its mouth as it was about to ignite its breath weapon. This dragon was responsible for thousands of deaths indirectly, as it was responsible for driving the raids by its underlings in its insatiable desire for food. Had this dragon personally decided to attack the village of Berk itself, it would have completely wiped the island off the map. Number 23. The Bewilderbeast. Even bigger than the Red Death at more than 500 feet long, the Bewilderbeast is the king of dragons in the How to Train Your Dragon movies and TV franchise. Unlike the Red Death, it spits ice rather than fire. Generally, this dragon is not aggressive, but the individual belonging to Drago Bloodfist showcases just how destructive this species can be. Drago's Bewilderbeast was able to trample and nearly demolish Berk, only refraining because Drago controlled it through fear and abuse. This same dragon also killed another Bewilderbeast that was friends with Hiccup's mother, Valka, in order to gain control over her faction of dragons. Because it has the ability to mentally control and summon other dragons, the Bewilderbeast is even more terrifying for this reason. The only thing stronger than the Bewilderbeast turned out to be Toothless, who was able to defeat it and drive it away after challenging it as a means of protecting Hiccup. Despite being smaller, Toothless managed to blast off one of the tusks of Drago's Bewilderbeast, defeating it. This dragon later bowed to him as its acknowledged king. Number 24. Raisleir. A dragon from the 2018 video game God of War. Raisleir is the only dragon from the God of War video game we will be covering in this video, simply because he is the one who arguably is the strongest and presents the greatest impact. Many dragons appear throughout the Norse saga of God of War, but out of all of them it is Raisleir who has the most impact. He serves as a terrifying boss fight for the player, but in-universe he is the reason that the giants and dwarves left the mountain that leads to the travel gate to Jotunheim. He is truly of monolithic proportions, with Kratos being able to fit easily in his mouth, and his hands alone being large enough to squash a human or even a god beneath them. Indeed, he is so large and powerful that Kratos says that in order to kill something as big as him, it needed to be caught off balance. And catch him off balance Kratos does, with help from his son Atreus. His massive size and his penchant for living underground has also caused his wings to atrophy, making Raislir completely terrestrial, but his lack of flying ability does not make him any less powerful. He is capable of shooting blasts of lightning so strong that they can electrocute the ground for a radius perhaps hundreds of feet across. Likewise, it took clever planning and using his own electric attacks against him, combined with the explosive qualities of World Tree sap, in order to effectively destroy Raislir. Such was Kratos' feat that his friend Sindri, the dwarf blacksmith, was genuinely surprised, saying that no one had killed a dragon in hundreds of years, not since the grand culling of the worms. Additionally, like all dragons in the God of War franchise, Raislir had the ability to see a dwarf when they used the ability to step between realms in order to avoid being seen. This added ability is what partly led to the encounter that culminated in Raislir's death to begin with. Number 25. Toothless. Intelligent, strong, and loyal, Toothless was the last of the Night Furies. His power was such that by the end of the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, he was the undisputed king of dragons. When he engaged in his alpha mode, Toothless was capable of defeating the vastly larger Bewilderbeasts thanks to his plasma blasts. He also had the ability to, of course, control any and all other dragons after becoming the alpha, and no dragon disobeyed him save the deadly individual known as Jormungandr. But even this dragon was not powerful enough to defeat him. Combined with his ability to turn invisible, his high durability, and high intelligence, Toothless ranks definitively in the Kingdom Crusher tier. Number 26. Atlas Flame. A dragon from the anime Fairy Tail, Atlas Flame is arguably one of the most powerful dragons in the Kingdom Crusher tier. He is powerful enough that he caused immense damage to the capital of Crocus until he was freed from the control of the future rogue Cheney by his foster nephew, the dragon slayer Natsu Dragneel. He was considered a good and trusted friend of Natsu's foster father, Igneel, the Fire Dragon King. Like his king, Atlas Flame was a fire dragon, and his body was made entirely of flame, meaning that breath attacks and even most physical attacks could not hurt him. He was only vulnerable to Dragon Slayer magic and attacks by other dragons, as was the case with all dragons from the world of Earthland. He also eventually founded an entire village full of giants, and when his body died, he became their most sacred relic, the Eternal Flame. His spirit was awakened by Natsu and Wendy Marvel after the village had been frozen. And when it was, Atlas Flame was able to unfreeze the entire village with his last remaining bit of willpower before he passed on. Even in death, such power showcases how incredibly strong Atlas Flame genuinely was. Number 27. Animus. Another dragon of significant power from Fairy Tail, Dragon Cry, Animus was able to level an entire kingdom, his own kingdom of Stella, when he reawakened his full power thanks to the Dragon Cry staff. Before this, he had been biding his time and healing inside of the child he had bonded to, a girl by the name of Sonia, but was unable to break free of her body due to her having no Dragon Slayer magic, making her an unsuitable host. He also briefly gored Natsu Dragneel on one of his horns during their fight, showcasing that even this mighty Dragon Slayer wizard nearly perished in the battle against him. Animus only lost because even the Dragon Cry staff was not enough to defeat a dragonized Natsu from tapping into his power as END in a fit of rage. Number 28. Shruken. Shruken, the dragon enslaved by King Galbatorix in the inheritance cycle, is arguably the most mentally unstable dragon on this list. As a result of being enslaved, he has gone completely insane, and were he allowed, he would have killed everyone and burned everything to the ground until nothing was left. A true Kingdom Crusher tier dragon by any measure, Shruken is so massive that the ground shakes for roughly a mile around as he walks, and a single swipe from his paw would have been enough to kill Saphira. Shruken was also so big that instead of a saddle, Galbatorix required a small pavilion to ride on his back. In the final battle against Galbatorix, Saphira and Thorn were only strong enough to pull his head to the ground inside of a confined space too small for him to move properly, which allowed Arya, the elven princess of Elismira, to kill him with the magical lance known as Nirnen, which she was only able to do by spearing him in the eye. Had he been outside, none of them would have had a chance. Number 29. Sol Regum. The first king of Xadia's dragons in the Netflix series The Dragon Prince. Sol Regum was an archdragon, one of the most powerful of his race. His elemental powers revolved around fire and sunlight, and he was shown to have leveled 2 kingdoms, Ilarion and Katalis. That a single dragon can do that is terrifying, but more terrifying is why. Sol Regum did it as a way of forcing compliance into making humans, creatures he denounced as lesser beings, renounce dark magic, and then out of hatred towards humans for being permanently blinded by dark magic. And the second time was even worse because he was being manipulated by an even greater evil, the Star-Touch elf, Aravos, whose daughter had been put to death by Sol Regum's actions. In the end, all of this led to Sol Regum's death, showing that such actions lead to the downfall of those who take them. Number 30. Rex Igneous. Another archdragon from the Dragon Prince, Rex Igneous had control over the element of earth. He was also a rival to Avazandum, the king of dragons at that time, and was able to fight evenly with him when the latter was resurrected as a spirit by the Star-Touch elf Aravos. Such was Rex Igneous's power that he was a contender for becoming the next king of the dragons after the death of their queen, Luna Tenebris. With his mastery over earth, including magma and having molten rock as a breath weapon, Rex Igneous is easily classified as a kingdom crusher. Number 31. Zubeia. The queen of Xadia's dragons in The Dragon Prince, Zubeia is an archdragon of the sky, having power over the wind, storms, and lightning. She is shown to have such power that she has no problem in getting Rex Igneous to back down after he becomes enraged with a show of force alone, and she is shown to easily overpower a pack of corrupted banthers. This power later helps her overcome and kill Aravos at the cost of her own life. As such, she easily falls into the Kingdom Crusher tier. Number 32. Avazandum. Zubeia's mate, This mighty dragon is arguably the most powerful out of all of Xadia's archdragons. And out of all of the dragons in the Dragon Prince, Avazandum is arguably the most powerful of them as well, and was, before his death, considered to be the most powerful creature in the world, having destroyed entire armies to protect Xadia from invasion. Like his mate Zubeia, Avazandum was a storm dragon and could control wind, weather, and lightning. He was able to kill his rival Rex Igneous in battle after being resurrected by Aravos as a spirit. He was also able to kill Aravos alongside his beloved Zubeia by biting him and causing him to explode, though doing so cost him his existence. To classify Avazandum as a kingdom crusher is a tentative decision. He could easily be more powerful, but the lack of showcasing his power makes him rank lower. Number 33. Vice Logia. A dragon from the anime and manga Fairy Tail, Vice Logia is a white dragon, and was the foster father of the dragon slayer wizard Sting Eucliffe. His power allowed him to eat anything white and then use it to power his magic and breath weapon, making him highly versatile. Vice Logia was powerful enough to aid in destroying Face, an anti-magic weapon that drained all magic from the continent of Ishgard, without effort when human wizards couldn't even stop it. As such, he easily ranks as a Kingdom Crusher tier dragon. Number 34. Skiadrum. A friend of Vice Logia, Skiadrum is another dragon from Fairy Tail who was the foster father of Dragon Slayer wizard Rogue Cheney. He was a shadow dragon capable of wielding darkness and shadows as his magic and breath weapon. Skiadrum, like Vice Logia, was powerful enough to aid his fellow dragons in destroying Face, the anti-magic weapon that drained all magic from the continent of Ishgard, all without significant effort. As such, he too easily ranks as a Kingdom Crusher tier dragon. Number 35. Metallicana. The foster father of Dragon Slayer wizard Gajiel Red Fox, Metallicana was an iron dragon appearing in Fairy Tail, and used iron to power his breath weapon and his magic. Like his other fellow dragons, Metallicana was powerful enough to aid in destroying Face, the anti-magic weapon that drained all magic from Ishgard without much effort. Because of this, he easily ranks as a Kingdom Crusher dragon. Number 36. Grandina. A sky dragon and the foster mother of Dragon Slayer wizard Wendy Marvel, Grandina was able to control the wind and sky as her magic and breath weapon, making her highly versatile. Grandina was also a talented healer. She was powerful enough to aid in destroying Face, the anti-magic weapon that drained all magic from Ishgard without effort. Because of this, she too ranks as a Kingdom Crusher tier dragon. Number 37. Vhagar. The second largest dragon to rule the skies of Westeros in the Song of Ice and Fire franchise, Vhagar easily ranks as a Kingdom Crusher. She was the veteran of 100 battles, including participating in Aegon's conquest, the Battle of the 100 Candles, Rook's Rest, and the Battle above the God's Eye. Vhagar carried multiple riders from House Targaryen and House Velaryon throughout her life, those being Queen Visenya Targaryen, Balon the Brave, Laena Velaryon, and Aemond Targaryen. Vhagar also killed multiple dragons and their riders in the Dance of the Dragons, having slain Arax and Lucerys Velaryon, Meleys and Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, and finally Caraxes. The battle between Caraxes and Vhagar proved fatal to her as well, even as she gutted Caraxes and tore off his wing, for Caraxes still managed to kill her by tearing out her throat while her rider was killed by Daemon Targaryen.
Considering the devastation she wreaked in her 180 years of life, Vhagar is arguably one of the most powerful dragons in the Kingdom Crusher tier, even without having magic to use at will. Nation Demolishers. The dragons of this tier are dragons that are capable of putting entire kingdoms or large countries under their talons, or destroy them completely. There are many dragons from many different books, series, and films that are capable of doing this. Number 38. Balerion the Black Dread. Arguably the weakest of the dragons in the Nation Demolishers tier, Balerion was the largest dragon to ever appear in A Song of Ice and Fire. He was ridden by multiple riders from House Targaryen, including Daenerys the Dreamer, Aegon the Conqueror, Maegor the Cruel, Princess Aeria Targaryen, and Viserys the First. Balerion was so large that even the most powerful armies had little chance against him. His fire melted and ruined Harrenhal and forged the Iron Throne, as well as becoming the deciding factor in the Field of Fire. Balerion was easily classifiable as a nation demolisher for both his physical and mental impact, as many chose to surrender rather than face this dragon's wrath. Balerion was a dragon who fought in multiple battles and campaigns, including the Century of Blood, Aegon's Conquest, the Battle at the Great Fork, the Battle Beneath the God's Eye, where he killed fellow dragon Quicksilver, and an unseen battle against a mysterious creature that left terrible scars on him when he took Princess Aeria Targaryen away from Westeros for a year. That final fight suggests that something as, if not more powerful, than the Black Dragon dealt him terrible wounds that never healed properly. Clearly, even dragons must fear something, but the fact that he came away from that at all only showed just how powerful he was. Number 39. Slyrak. A dragon from the Defense of the Ancients franchise, Slyrak is a fire eldworm, the leader and progenitor of fire dragons and of fire itself. In the Netflix series Defense of the Ancients, Dragon's Blood, it is shown he reincarnates into a new body when the eldest fire dragon is available to possess. He was also able to mix his blood with that of the Dragon Knight, Davion, allowing them to inhabit the same body and use each other's power. Slyrak was also a pillar of creation, making his existence essential to the survival of the world, along with that of the other eldworms that represented the other elements. As a result, Slyrak is exceptionally powerful, almost godlike in his metaphysical state. In his physical dragon form, he was capable of leveling nations, and he often did so whenever awakened due to the demands of his massive physical body. Very few ever survived his assaults. Those that did knew what an eldworm was capable of, and were wise to escape if they could. Number 40. Thordak. The most powerful member of the Chroma Conclave, Thordak the Cinder King is arguably the most powerful dragon ever seen in the Legend of Vox Machina, and by extent, the Dungeons & Dragons multiverse. He is also one of the most powerful red dragons ever seen in the D&D franchise, and his breath weapon was, as with all red dragons, fire. Thordak was already huge when he tried and failed to take the continent of Marquette in Exandria when he was defeated by a brass dragon, and experiments by the necromancer Opash only made him more powerful still. When Thordak was imprisoned in the Fire Realm by Lady Allura Vysoren of Iman and her team, Thordak later used the relic they used to imprison him, a soul anchor made from a fire titan's heart, to further enhance his powers and break free with the aid of the green dragon Raishan. They subsequently created the Chroma Conclave and conquered Taldori and the other kingdom of Draconia, leveling those nations to form their own empire. The Soul Anchor also began driving Thordak mad, as its power corrupted him. Out of all of the dragons in the Chroma Conclave, Thordak was undoubtedly the most powerful, with his clear ability to punch a hole through Sovereign Uriel's immense palace, and its keep with a single fire blast being a prime example of his power as a nation demolisher. Thordak was defeated only through both betrayal by Raishan and the use of the vestiges of divergence by Vox Machina to bring him down. Even after his death, the land never fully healed from his impact, showcasing just how powerful he truly was. Number 41. Irene Belsarion. The mother of Urza Scarlet and the creator of Dragon Slayer magic, Irene was once a human appearing in the anime Fairy Tail. Overuse of her magic combined with her husband attempting to murder her resulted in her being transformed into a dragon, where she lived wild until she was given the ability to transform back into a human by Zareth Dragneel, whom she would later serve out of loyalty after giving birth to Urza and leaving her to grow up as an orphan, as Irene could not bring herself to enchant her own consciousness onto her baby to become human again. She would eventually end up fighting Urza decades later after Zareth declared war against Fairy Tail in the Alvarez Empire arc. Despite being of a desire to be fully human again, Irene could ultimately not bring herself to kill or possess her own daughter, and died by committing suicide rather than kill the only person she still loved. Irene still remained after this, having enchanted her spirit onto fellow dragon slayer Wendy Marvel, whom she passed on her knowledge to before allowing the moon dragon, Selene, to destroy her spirit, allowing her to be reincarnated as a baby in the parallel world of Edolus. Given her vast knowledge and power, Irene was definitely a nation demolisher, as she was able to wield the power of Universe 1, magic she'd invented to alter the entire continent. She'd also had the power to create meteor showers that almost no one, save her own daughter, could survive. This only shows just how terrifying her power really was, and even then, that there were other dragons outclassing her.
Number 42. Dogramag. A dragon from Fairy Tail, 100 Years' Quest. Dogramag was the weakest member of the 5 dragon gods, but his earth-based power was terrible indeed, for Dogramag helped to hatch the plan to turn all of the humans of the continent of Giltina into dragons. To do this, he purposely let himself be put in a half-dead state by the dragon slayer Elefseria that allowed him to seed the continent with lacrimas that caused people to transform into dragons. Dogramag was about as strong as Acnologia, the dragon slayer turned dragon who was himself capable of destroying nations. In the end, however, the Dogra cores that Dogramag needed to maintain his power were destroyed by Fairy Tail, and Dogramag himself was slain in a team effort by dragon slayers Natsu Dragneel and Suzaku of Diabolos. In all, Dogramag represents a perfect example of raw power worthy of being called a nation demolisher. Number 43. Igneel. The Fire Dragon King, the foster father to Natsu Dragneel and the biological father to Ignia, the Fire Dragon God. Arguably one of the most powerful dragons to ever appear in fairy tale, Ignia had power and to spare. His flames burned so hot that his fire breath resembled nothing less than a falling sun descending from the sky. He was also the only dragon able to take on the dreaded Acnologia on even terms. The only reason he didn't win was because he was in a half-dead state, the result of Acnologia tearing his spirit from his body, forcing him and other dragons, including Grandina, Metallicana, Vicelogia, and Skiadrum, to hide in the souls of the children they adopted as their own. Still, Igniel was strong enough, even in this state, to rip off the arm of Acnologia even as the black dragon tore him nearly in half. That Igniel could even do this was a testament to his ability to fight even from the brink of death. Because of his raw power, Igniel ranks definitively as a nation demolisher. Number 44. Acnologia. The Black Dragon of the Apocalypse, Acnologia was, like Irene Belsarion, once a human who turned into a dragon from overusing his Dragon Slayer magic. Acnologia was so powerful that he nearly drove dragons into extinction as a result of his genocide, and he was able to destroy an entire nation by himself. More than that, Acnologia fired a breath attack capable of destroying an island, when he nearly blasted Tenro Island with a blast like a nuclear warhead. He was also immune to most elemental dragon attacks. It took nearly an entire continent of wizards in the fairy tale universe to kill him, by immobilizing him so that the last 7 Dragon Slayer wizards on the continent of Ishgard could strike the killing blow. All of these feats and more showcase why Acnologia ranks as a nation demolisher. Number 45. Merkphobia. A water dragon and one of the 5 dragon gods featured in fairy tale 100 Years Quest, Merkphobia is a dragon who is more powerful than Acnologia. Such is his strength that he even states that if his power isn't sealed away, he would eventually flood all of Earthland. He could even transform into a human at will. He eventually was defeated by Natsu Dragneel and his team, but his life was spared since he was benevolent by nature. He could raise an entire ocean of water over his head, and his breath weapon was nothing less than a torrent of water. As such, he is easily classified as a nation demolisher tier dragon. Number 46. Selene. A moon dragon and one of the 5 dragon gods that serve as the primary antagonists of fairy tale 100 Years Quest, Selene was capable of using the power of the moon and stars as the basis of her magic and as her breath weapon. While technically benevolent by nature, Selene initially came across as extremely dangerous and exceedingly ruthless, to the point where she was mistaken for being a villain. Selene was extremely strong, and her power was such that she even caused an entire world, the world of Edelus, to fear her. Why did they fear her? Because Selene could cross dimensions. Due to her knowing the ability to cross between worlds, Edelus, which harvested magic power from other worlds including Elentir and Earthland, actively chose to avoid crossing her path because any magic they harvested from Elentir could simply be recaptured by her because of how powerful she genuinely was. And that is saying something, because Elentir was a world overflowing with magic power, to the point where it needed white wizards in order to erase some of it. Selene was literally so strong that her very presence on Elentir was enough to throw the world out of balance and awaken the monster known as Alta Face. She could also take human form, preferring to spend most of her time in the form of a beautiful woman with blonde hair, and she was able to kill a highly skilled dragon slayer wizard who killed her son and many other dragons besides, simply by stomping on him once. Alta Face was eventually vanquished, but the fact that a dragon was powerful enough to reawaken such a monster that was the source of magic power in that world was something to behold. She was also strong enough to go up against an even stronger dragon, the fire dragon god, Ignia, and hold her own against him until he took a cheap shot that gravely wounded her. She was also about as powerful as Acnologia, so she easily classes as a nation demolisher. Number 47. Grigori. A dragon from the video game Dragon's Dogma, Grigori is far more than just a monster. He is the dragon sent to find and choose the Arisen to become Earth's new seneschal, the god of their world. He attacks, kills, and removes the heart of the next candidate, and fights them before dying himself. Anyone who fails to defeat the seneschal then becomes Grigori's successor. Because of his divine origins, Grigori is only able to be killed by the Arisen and his pawns. Grigori still has limits and is not truly a deity, but serves one to help maintain the cycle that keeps the world alive. With his power shown to be capable of destroying nations, Grigori is most assuredly classifiable as a nation demolisher class dragon. Number 48. Smaug. The last fire drake of Middle-earth as of the events of The Hobbit, Smaug is arguably one of the most powerful dragons ever showcased in any book or film. Smaug ranks high on the Nation Demolisher list because of his achievements during the Third Age when he was active. Smaug not only attacked one, but two nations that lived right next to each other, the Kingdom of Erebor, which was the home to King Thror and his family, including his grandson Thorin Oakenshield, along with the city of Dale, which was ruled by King Girion. He destroyed both of these kingdoms with little effort, and then ruled Erebor, hoarding its gold for the next 150 years until his eventual death when he attacked Lake Town. Even as he died, he destroyed Lake Town entirely. Despite wanting to be largely left alone after conquering the mountain, he was still an evil creature, and reacted to any threat to his life or wealth with horrifying power and fury. In his own words, Smaug had armor that was like tenfold shields, teeth like swords, claws like spears, and the shock of his tail was like a thunderbolt. His wings were as a hurricane, and of course, like all fire drakes, his breath was death. Smaug was, as stated, heavily armored, as all dragons of Middle-earth were, and like most of them, he had only a few weaknesses, namely, among them, the fact that his underbelly was soft. To counteract this, he slept on his treasure hoard, letting the gems embed in the skin of his chest and belly. The only weak point was a bare patch on the left side of his chest. This unprotected patch of skin would later be his undoing when Bard the Bowman, descendant of King Girion, used a black arrow forged in the smithies of the dwarves to slay him during the dragon's attack on Lake Town. In The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, and The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies, this is elaborated on, with it being shown that Smaug's scales could not be pierced by anything except black arrows, which were specifically designed to kill dragons. It is also shown that when Girion faced Smaug, He also managed to loose a scale from Smaug's chest, creating the bare patch of skin that Bard later took advantage of to kill the dragon. Because he was able to destroy 3 different cities within an entire kingdom and likewise bring that kingdom to its knees while staving off attacks for more than 150 years, Smaug is easily classifiable as a nation demolisher. But there are dragons that still rank higher than him. Number 49. Glaurung, the father of dragons himself. This is the dragon that spawned all others in Middle-earth. Created by Morgoth, the first Dark Lord of Middle-earth, Glaurung was arguably the most powerful of the wingless dragons, and he was also the first of the Uruk-loki, or fire drakes. Not only was he an extremely powerful and large dragon, but he had command over entire armies of orcs. Being the first dragon, he was the first to sleep on beds of treasure, which he took as the spoils of war when he conquered kingdoms and demolished nations. Glaurung was so powerful that when Angband was being besieged, he turned the tide against the forces of good and caused them to retreat. He was also responsible for cursing the children of Húrin. With his hypnotic gaze and ability to erase and alter memories, he caused Túrin to forget about his allies by making them think his family was in danger. He also caused Túrin's sister, Naenor, to lose her memories completely, which led to her and Túrin falling in love with one another in an act of incest. Túrin would eventually kill Glaurung, stabbing him from below in the belly as he attempted to cross the fords of a river, much as Siegfried did to Fafnir. Glaurung died from the wound, but not before he released the spell he had held on Túrin and Naenor, causing them to kill themselves in horror of what they had done. For all these feats and more, Glaurung ranks arguably as the most powerful nation demolisher among dragons, not just in regards to sheer raw power, but impact and ability, as he literally had been created by a lesser god and had enough power to level armies, destroy cities, and conquer nations in Middle-earth. In the end, it took a magic sword and the desperate gamble by a warrior being manipulated by his spells to finally kill this father of dragons. Planetary Threats. These are dragons whose power is enough to threaten the entire world. They rank arguably as the most powerful draconic beings imaginable. Number 50. Viernese. One of the 5 dragon gods featured in Fairy Tale 100 Years Quest, Viernese was about as powerful, if not more so, than Acna Logia. This was a dragon that had literally turned himself into a concept to avoid being hunted by the black dragon of the apocalypse while he accumulated power. Through the use of alchemy, Viernese transformed himself into the alchemist guild known as Gold Owl. In order to defeat him, the team from the Wizard Guild Fairy Tale needed the help of the living weapon known as Athena and the creation of a philosopher's stone in order to return him to physical form so that he could be properly killed. Even then, it was a terrible battle that nearly failed. Viernese had such incredible power that to be able to go from physical form to concept meant that he could survive almost any destructive attack, because there would essentially be nothing to attack at all. Concepts cannot die. They cannot be destroyed. When fellow dragon god Ignia activated his plan to turn every human on the continent of Giltina into dragons to undo the genocide Acna Logia had nearly succeeded in carrying out, Viernese was eventually destroyed for good by Selene, Wendy Marvel, and Grey Fullbuster working together to bring him down. All of this combined puts him at the rank of a planetary threat. Number 51. Alderaan. One of the 5 dragon gods appearing in fairy tale 100 Years Quest, Alderaan was the wood dragon god, and was so large and powerful that he ranks as perhaps one of the 2 largest dragons on this list. This is a dragon that makes Balerion the Black Dread, the Bewilderbeast, Red Death, Smaug, Vagar, and even Shruken look small. He is so large that he actually supported 5 cities on his back, shoulders, and hands. Combined with this, he was incredibly powerful. An entire fleet of airships from a continental army was destroyed by him in an instant. But all of this power came at a cost. In order to control this massive amount of magical power, Alderaan had to distribute his magic between 5 different god seeds, which were physical beings created by his body that could each control one part of his power. These 5 entities, Wolfen, Doom, Gears, Metro, and Alderaan, the last of whom served as the dragon's brain and humanoid form, were connected to his power, and if destroyed, the great dragon would subsequently weaken. They also had the ability to regenerate over time. Alderaan was also powerful enough that even Acnologia was not able to kill him. Despite this, the scars that Acnologia inflicted required much time to heal, and Alderaan used the nutrients from the humans living on his body to regenerate himself once his power was reawakened. That also makes Alderaan one of the most terrible mass murderers among the dragons on this list, because according to his count, that means he killed around 300,000 people in an instant by turning them into plants and absorbing the nutrients they provided him with. All of these acts make him a planetary threat, especially when combined with the fact that he sees humans only as nutrients meant to worship and nourish him. It took the entire fairy tale guild working together to take him down, and this was after having killed Acnologia and having gotten stronger themselves. Alderaan would briefly be resurrected as part of the fire dragon god Ignia's plan to turn every human in the continent of Giltina into dragons, and as his final act, he would use his magic and combine it with Dogramags to turn everything on the continent into dragons. This type of power is enough to render any dragon as a planetary threat. Number 52. Ignia. Arguably the most powerful of the 5 dragon gods in fairy tale 100 Years Quest, Ignia was the fire dragon god, and the son of the legendary fire dragon king Igniel, who was slain by Acnologia. Ignia was so powerful that even Acnologia, however, did not hold a candle to him. The only real threats to him were the black wizard Ferris, who grafted the disembodied arm of Acnologia onto her own, and Ignia's foster brother, Natsu Dragneel, who holds Igniel's fire powers. It was Ignia who crafted the plan to create a nation of dragons by turning humans across the continent of Giltina into dragons with help from his friend and collaborator, Dogramag. Ignia's power is such that he can do things with fire that otherwise might not be possible, including burning water. And it is clear from his power that he was a match and then some for Selene, who was the only member of the 5 dragon gods to openly fight him in battle. She even held her own for a time against him until he delivered a cheap shot by blasting her in the neck with his fire breath. Ignia was also so powerful that if he is not stopped, he would eventually burn the world with how much raw power he has. Given that he has the most control over this power of any of the 5 dragon gods, this makes him all the more terrifying and cements his status as a planetary threat.
If that isn't enough, at the time of this video's publication, he had absorbed Ferris and combined his might with that of the remaining power of Acnologia, making him even more dangerous. As the Black Flame Dragon God, he is arguably the most powerful dragon the world of Earthland has ever seen. The final battle between him and the series protagonists, including his foster brother Natsu, promises to be one to remember.
Number 53. Aslagor. Arguably the most mysterious dragon on this list, Aslagor is a dragon, or possibly a close relative of dragons, of immense size, so large that he makes even Alderaan look small. Coming from the land of Allegasia, and not yet having appeared in person, he is first described and encountered in the book Murtagh, which takes place after the events of the inheritance cycle. Aslagor has an entire cult doing his bidding, the cult of the Duel Dromar. This cult, referred to as the Dreamers, follow his commands, which he gives through dreams to them. Unlike any of the other dragons on this list, he chooses to wield his powers through a chosen speaker, the leader of the Dreamers, who interprets his will and acts accordingly. Through the speaker, Aslagor wields incredible power, enough to shake the entire valley of Nalgorgoth, which sits over top of his underground lair. According to what people see in their dreams, he is said to be an ancient, wingless black dragon with piercing red eyes. He is shown to be of monolithic size within these dreams, and his followers stated that he will bring about the destruction of the current world and usher in a new age. When Murtagh sensed his mind, he shrank from the touch of it, for Aslagor's mind was so vast, hostile, and full of rage that it was beyond overwhelming. It is also implied that he has broken free from his lair at the end of the book in which he has first appeared. As of yet, he has not been slain, so he remains as terrible a threat as ever. As a result, he is easily classifiable as a planetary threat. His control over the cult that worships him as their god, his immense size, vast and hostile mind, and his sheer power rank him as one of the deadliest dragons on this list. Number 54. Ancalagon the Black. Last but certainly not least, we have the most powerful dragon in Middle-earth, Ancalagon the Black himself. This dragon was so massive and powerful that in the War of Wrath, the final battle to stop Morgoth once and for all, Ancalagon was able to drive back the host of elves, men, and even their divine allies until the advent of Eärendil the Mariner and the great eagles. It has never been exactly specified as to how large Ancalagon was, but it took Eärendil a full day to defeat him, and that was using his flying ship, the Vingilot, and receiving help from the great eagles. When he was killed, Ancalagon destroyed the 3 towers of Thangorodrim, and given that each mountain was 5 miles across, this would make him massive indeed. As such, he takes the final spot on this list as possibly the most powerful dragon ever depicted in books, film, video games, and television. And so we come to the end of our list of the most powerful dragons in media, whether it is books, films, games, or television series. I hope you have enjoyed watching this video as much as I have enjoyed making it, because this was a labor of love on my part. Let me know if there are any other dragons that I might have missed from any series you know about. I'd love to discuss them with anyone willing to leave a comment. Until then, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe and hit the bell icon if you would like to see more videos like this. Every bit of appreciation helps this channel grow and spread to more viewers like you. Until next time, I bid you a fond farewell. Thank you as always for watching.